The moment I walked through my parents' front door that Thanksgiving, I knew something was wrong. My mom had this look on her face. Not the warm, relieved smile she usually gave me after I'd driven 4 hours from Chicago. It was tighter than that. Like she was bracing for something. My dad was already pulling on his jacket, keys jangling in his hand, and my brother was nowhere in sight. "Oh good, you made it," my mom said, hugging me quickly. Too quickly. Perfect timing. I should have asked what that meant. I didn't. I set my bag down in the hallway and noticed the toys. A pink plastic horse on the stairs. Crayons scattered across the kitchen floor. A juice box on its side on the counter, still dripping. "Mom," I said slowly, "where are the kids?" She was already moving toward the back door. "Upstairs, taking a nap. They've been so good, honestly. Madison barely cried at all this morning." I turned to look at her fully. "This morning? I thought Tyler and Carrie weren't dropping them off until tonight." My dad cleared his throat. "Change of plans, sweetheart. Their flight got moved up." "What flight?" Neither of them answered. I stood in that kitchen for about 3 seconds before my brain finished the math. Tyler. Carrie. A flight that had apparently already left. 3 kids upstairs sleeping. My parents with their coats on. "You're leaving," I said. My mom patted my arm. "Just for a few days. Your Aunt Patrice has a place in Scottsdale, and we've had this trip on the calendar since August. We didn't want to worry you." "You didn't want to worry me," I repeated. "You're so capable, Nadia. You've always been so good with the kids." I'm 31 years old. I'm a project manager at a logistics firm. I had just wrapped up a product rollout that had taken 8 months of my life. And I had taken this week off, my first full week off in 2 years. Specifically to do nothing. Sleep. Watch movies. Eat too much stuffing and maybe go for a walk by the lake. Instead, I was standing in my parents' kitchen in Naperville, Illinois, listening to my mom explain that my brother had left his 3 kids, ages 7, 5, and 2, in a house that my parents were also, apparently, about to vacate. "When does Tyler get back?" I asked. My voice was very calm. "I don't know how." "Sunday," my dad said. "He was already at the back door." It was Tuesday. "Dad." "Nadia, your brother works so hard. He and Carrie needed this. You understand." I didn't understand. I understood that my brother was a sales director who made $140,000 a year and had a wife who worked part-time, and that they had apparently decided that the most logical Thanksgiving plan was to fly to Cancun and leave their children with me, without asking, without warning, without anything except a pink plastic horse on the staircase and a leaking juice box. My mom left a handwritten note on the counter. In it, she listed the kids' food allergies. Madison, the 7-year-old, couldn't have tree nuts. Their school schedule. Irrelevant, it was Thanksgiving break. And the location of the nearest urgent care. She had signed it, "Love, Mom," with a little smiley face. I read that note 3 times. Then I heard footsteps upstairs, and a small voice said, "Aunt Nadia?" And I put the note down, because there was nothing else I could do. Madison came downstairs first, dragging a stuffed rabbit by one ear. Then Cooper, who was 5 and immediately wanted to know if I had brought any chips. And then there was Rosie, the 2-year-old, who had clearly just woken up and was a disaster. Face red, hair matted, clutching a corner of her blanket like it was the only fixed point in the universe. I picked Rosie up. She smelled like sleep and graham crackers. She didn't cry, which surprised me. "Where's Grandma?" Madison asked. "She had to go somewhere," I said. "Where?" "On a trip." Madison looked at me with the particular flat expression of a 7-year-old who knows she's being managed. "With Grandpa?" "Yes, and Mom and Dad are in Mexico." She said it so matter-of-factly that I almost laughed. "Almost. Did you know they were going?" I asked, even though I probably shouldn't have asked a 7-year-old that. Madison shrugged. "Dad said we were staying with Grandma. Grandma said we were staying with you." She thought about it. "Nobody asked me." I stood there holding her sister and thought, yeah, nobody asked me either. That first night was fine. The way things are fine when you're running on adrenaline and haven't fully processed the situation yet. I made grilled cheese because it was the only thing I could confirm all three kids would eat. Cooper spilled his milk. Rosie threw a piece of bread across the kitchen and then looked very pleased about it. Madison sat quietly and ate her entire sandwich and then asked if she could watch a show. And I said yes, and she said, "Thank you," very politely, and something about that small politeness broke my heart a little. I got them all to bed by 9. It took an hour. Rosie did not go gently. She screamed for approximately 45 minutes, which I later learned was normal for her, and which nobody had thought to mention in the note. I sat on the edge of the guest bed afterward and called my brother. It rang 4 times and went to voicemail. I called Carrie. Same thing. I texted my mom, "I need to talk to you about this week." She sent back a string of heart emojis. I put my phone down and sat in the dark guest room and did the thing I always do when I'm overwhelmed, which is make a list in my head of the facts as they exist. Fact: I had 3 children in my care. Fact: I had no backup. Fact: I had a project review call on Wednesday that I had already promised my director I would not cancel. Fact: I had 5 days until Sunday, and Sunday was not guaranteed. Fact: I was so angry I couldn't feel my fingertips. Wednesday was hard. Rosie woke up at 5:45. I know this because I looked at my phone and thought, this is not happening, and then she started calling. Up, 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 from the portable crib in the corner of my room, and it very much was happening. By 8 a.m. I had fed everyone breakfast, refereed 2 arguments between Madison and Cooper, cleaned yogurt off the wall. I genuinely do not know how it got there, and changed Rosie twice. I had also consumed approximately half a pot of coffee and sent 3 apologetic emails to my colleagues about potentially needing to reschedule. My director, a woman named Sheila, called me at 9. "Nadia," she said, "I need you on that 11 o'clock. The client specifically asked for you." "I know," I said. "I was watching Cooper attempt to build a blanket fort in the living room. I'll be there." "Is everything okay?" "You sound." "I'm fine," I said. "I'll be there." I spent the next hour bribing the children with screen time, setting Madison up with a tablet, Cooper with cartoons, and Rosie with a collection of Tupperware lids that she found inexplicably entertaining. I set up my laptop at the kitchen table, put on a blazer over my pajama bottoms, and joined the call. It went okay for about 20 minutes. Then Rosie discovered that banging 2 Tupperware lids together was significantly more satisfying than playing with them separately. I muted myself repeatedly. I unmuted to answer questions. I typed detailed follow-up notes into the chat because I was afraid to speak for too long. At one point, the client asked me something about third-quarter projections, and I started to answer, and Cooper walked into the kitchen behind me, saw I was on a call, and immediately announced at full volume that Madison had taken his blanket and it wasn't fair. I kept talking. The client paused. Then generously, he said, "Sounds like a busy household," and moved on. After the call ended, Sheila texted me, "Are you sure everything's okay?" I stared at that message for a long time. Then I typed back, "Honestly, no. My family dropped a situation on me without asking. I'm managing it. I won't let it affect my work." She sent back, "I appreciate the honesty. If you need to adjust anything this week, let me know before, not after." I exhaled for what felt like the first time all day. Thursday was Thanksgiving. I made it work. Rotisserie chicken from the grocery store, boxed stuffing, canned green beans, crescent rolls from a tube. Madison helped me set the table and put out paper napkins folded into triangles, which she said her teacher had showed them how to do. Cooper ate only the rolls and declared them the best part of Thanksgiving. Rosie ate 4 bites of chicken and fell asleep in her high chair before I could bring out dessert. We ate at 4 in the afternoon with the Macy's parade playing on TV, and it was genuinely, unexpectedly okay. Not the Thanksgiving I planned, not the Thanksgiving I wanted, but Madison made me a paper turkey and put it by my plate, and Cooper asked me to tell him a story about a dragon after dinner, and I sat on the couch with Rosie asleep on my chest and Cooper tucked under my arm and thought, I love these kids. I do. That's what makes this so infuriating. I tried my brother again that night. Voicemail. I tried my mom, she answered this time. I could hear what sounded like restaurant noise in the background. Nadia, hi, how are the kids? They're fine, I said. I need to talk to you about what happens when Tyler gets back. What do you mean? I mean I need to talk about the fact that you and Tyler and Carrie all made a plan that involved me and no one thought to actually ask me. A pause. Honey, we knew you'd be there. That's not the same as asking me, Mom. You always say yes when we need you, because you ask, I said. When you ask, I almost always say yes. But nobody asked. You all just assumed, and I need you to understand that I'm not upset about the kids. I love the kids. I'm upset because I wasn't given a choice. Another pause. Longer this time. I hear you, she finally said, but her voice had that particular flatness that meant she didn't, really. After I hung up, I sat in the kitchen and cried. Not a lot. Just enough. Friday passed. Saturday passed. The kids and I settled into something that almost resembled a routine. Madison helped me with Rosie in the mornings. Cooper stopped fighting over the blanket fort and started expanding it. Rosie learned my name. She started calling me N, which was close enough, and which made me feel something I couldn't quite name. I stopped trying to reach my brother after Friday. I sent him one final text that said, Tyler, I'm watching your kids. You owe me a real conversation when you get back, not an excuse. He left it on read. Sunday arrived. Tyler and Carrie were supposed to land at 3 and be at my parents' house by 5. At 4:30, my parents' front door opened and it was not Tyler. It was my Uncle Ray. Uncle Ray is my mom's brother. He's 62, retired from the post office, and has a voice like gravel and a zero-tolerance policy for what he calls nonsense. He lives about 40 minutes from my parents and had apparently stopped by to drop off leftovers from his own Thanksgiving. He walked into the living room, looked at me, bags under my eyes, wearing a sweatshirt I'd been wearing for 2 days, and then looked at the 3 children spread across the living room, and then he just stood there. Where's your mother? He said. Scottsdale, I said. And your brother? Cancun. Uncle Ray put the leftovers down very slowly on the hall table. How long have you been here? He asked. Since Tuesday. He looked at me for a long moment. And they left you with all 3 of them? Without asking, I said. Yes. Uncle Ray sat down on the arm of the couch. He didn't say anything for a while. Then he said, Does your grandmother know about this? I hadn't told my grandmother. My grandmother, my dad's mom, who we all call Gran, is 80 and sharp and lives in a senior community about 20 minutes from here. She calls me every Sunday at noon, and I had let 2 of those calls go to voicemail this week because I didn't want to explain. No, I said. Uncle Ray picked up his phone. Ray, I said. You don't have to. I'm not doing it for drama, he said. I'm doing it because this is wrong and someone in this family needs to say so to the right people. He paused. Your grandmother is the right people, he called her. I heard him explain the situation in about 4 sentences, which is the Uncle Ray way. I heard my grandmother's voice go from greeting to silence to something clipped and very quiet. That quiet was worse than shouting. When Uncle Ray hung up, he said, She'll be here in 20 minutes. Gran arrived in 19. She came in the front door without knocking, which is her right because it's technically still the family home she helped pay for 30 years ago. She looked at the kids, who were delighted to see her because they loved her, and she hugged all 3 of them, and then she looked at me, and she said, Come sit with me. We sat at the kitchen table. Gran held my hand across it. She asked me to tell her everything, and I did. From the moment I walked in Tuesday to the note on the counter to the Zoom call to the 17 unanswered texts to Sunday afternoon. Gran listened without interrupting, which is not her default setting and meant she was very, very angry. When I finished, she said, You should have called me. I didn't want to put this on you. Nadia. She looked at me the way she's been looking at me since I was 8 years old. Like she can see every version of me at once. You have been carrying this family's weight since you were a little girl. You take on what nobody asks you if you want. And then the people who should be ashamed of themselves get to walk back in the door on Sunday like nothing happened. I didn't say anything. My throat was doing something inconvenient. That stops today, she said. Tyler and Carrie arrived at 5:20. They came through the door tan and relaxed, carrying duty-free bags, already laughing about something. Tyler started to say, "Hey Nads, how are the?" And then he saw Gran. The laugh stopped. "Mom's not here," he said, confused. "I thought she was." "Sit down, Tyler," Gran said. He sat. So did Carrie. Uncle Ray was still there. He stood with his arms folded by the kitchen door and didn't say anything, which was somehow more effective than anything he could have said. Gran didn't raise her voice. She never does when she's truly serious. She laid it out, what I'd told her, what the week had looked like, what I had given up, what no one had asked me. She talked about the Wednesday work call. She talked about the Wednesday work call. She talked about Rosie screaming for 45 minutes every night. She talked about a note with a smiley face on it. Tyler started to say, "We knew Nadia could handle it." "That is not the point," Gran said. "The point is that she was not asked. The point is that she drove 4 hours for a holiday that was taken from her without anyone saying one word to her face. The point is that you left your children, my great-grandchildren, in a home with no one to watch them until your sister happened to arrive, and you called that a plan." Carrie had gone very still. "Carrie," Gran said, "you're a mother. You know what it takes. Would you like someone to do this to you?" Carrie said, "No, ma'am," very quietly. She didn't look at me. Tyler opened his mouth and closed it again. What happened next was not screaming exactly. It was the thing that's worse than screaming. The part where someone has no argument left and they know it and the room knows it and the silence is its own verdict. Tyler started with, "It wasn't supposed to be a big deal," and Gran said, "Then apologize." And Tyler tried again with Nadia's always said family first. And Gran said, "She's not your on-call employee, she's your sister." And somewhere in there Carrie started crying, not performatively, but the real kind, the kind that meant she'd been aware on some level that this wasn't okay. Uncle Ray finally spoke. He said, "You need to thank her, properly, and then you need to figure out how you're going to make this right. Because make it up to you in 2 weeks does not cover this." Tyler turned to me. He looked exhausted in a different way now. Not vacation tired, but the particular exhaustion of someone who has just seen themselves clearly. "Nadia," he said, "I'm sorry. I genuinely am. I don't know what I thought. I think I thought you wouldn't mind and I never asked if that was even true." It wasn't enough. It wasn't close to enough, but it was more than I expected, which is a different thing. I said, "You're right that you didn't ask. I need you to promise me that doesn't happen again. Not like this. If you need help, you ask me, and I'll tell you yes or no and you respect whichever one I say." He nodded. "Yeah, okay." My mom and dad came back from Scottsdale the next morning. Gran was still there. That conversation took a different shape, but the substance was the same. My mom cried. My dad got defensive and then went quiet. Gran said at one point, "I raised you to do better than this," and my dad looked like he was 16 again, and I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Here's what I want to say to anyone who's listening to this. I know what it is to be the one everyone assumes will handle it. To be the one without kids, without a partner, without what the family has quietly decided constitutes a real schedule. I know what it is to be called capable as a reason to be taken for granted. I have been that person my entire adult life. And I let it happen because I thought saying yes was the same as being loved, and it is not. The person who saved me that week wasn't a dramatic confrontation or a perfect speech. It was an 80-year-old woman who drove 20 minutes in the dark and sat across a kitchen table and held my hand and said, "You should have called me. I should have called her sooner. I know that now. And I should have said something sooner to my brother and my parents. Not as an accusation, but as a fact. I am a person. My time is real. My life does not pause because it's convenient for yours. If you're the one people always assume will handle it, please hear this. Capable is not the same as available. Loving your family is not the same as being their default. You are allowed to say not without asking. You are allowed to say not without asking. You are allowed to say I need to be chosen, not assumed." I drove back to Chicago on Monday afternoon. My grandmother walked me to my car. She hugged me for a long time. "Call me next Sunday," she said. "I will," I said, and I did. I keep thinking about that note my mom left on the counter. The one with the smiley face. She spent time on that note. She wrote out Madison's allergies and the urgent care address and signed it with a little curving smile, and somehow that detail is the part I can't let go of. Because it means she knew. She knew I would be there alone, with 3 kids, with no warning, and she made peace with it before I ever walked through the door. The smiley face wasn't carelessness, it was a conclusion she had already reached about who I was and what my time was worth. That's the part that took me a long time to sit with honestly. Not just what they did, but why it worked. Why it had always worked. Because I had let it. Every time I said yes without being asked, every time I absorbed a situation and handled it without naming the cost, I was teaching the people I loved that I was available in a way that didn't require their consideration. I was capable, and I had let capable become a substitute for consent. What Gran understood, what Uncle Ray understood in his quiet 4-sentence way, is that what happened that week wasn't an accident or an oversight. It was the end result of a long pattern. And patterns don't break themselves. Someone has to name them out loud, in a room, to the right people. That's not cruelty, that's honesty. And honesty, even when it lands hard, is the only thing that creates the conditions for something better. Tyler looked exhausted when he finally said sorry. Not vacation tired, but the kind of tired that comes from seeing yourself clearly for the first time in a while. I believe he meant it. I also know that meaning it and changing are two different things, and only one of them requires sustained effort over time. What I learned is that I can't do that work for him. I can hold the boundary. I can say, "Ask me first, and I will tell you honestly." But I cannot want his growth more than he does. What I could do, what I did, was decide to stop disappearing quietly into situations that cost me. That takes something that doesn't come naturally to me, which is the willingness to be temporarily uncomfortable rather than permanently resentful. It means saying the hard thing in real time instead of absorbing it and smiling. It means trusting that the people who actually love you can handle your honesty. And if they can't, that's information too. Gran held my hand across that kitchen table and didn't offer me platitudes. She just witnessed. She said, "You should have called me." And what I heard underneath that was, "Your difficulty was worth interrupting my evening. You were worth the drive." I have thought about that more times than I can count in the months since. I drove back to Chicago on a gray Monday morning with a paper turkey Madison had made me, sitting on my passenger seat. I was exhausted and behind on work and not entirely sure what Thanksgiving had been. But I knew something I hadn't known the week before. I am not a resource. I am a person. And the difference between those two things is worth every hard conversation it takes to make it clear.